Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That is linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads. I am all over the place. I am actively spreading. I'm spreading right now. If you can't, if you just listen closely, you can hear me spreading just all over the internet. Last week we talked about how I have not been using as much Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter as maybe I have in the past. I did tweet and post elsewhere across there. I was tweeting and all of that stuff. So maybe I'm going to use them more. I don't know. I don't know. I think social media is weird, right? I think it's a scenario where we used to have a lot fewer social media sites, right? And then, you think about like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, right? Those are kind of the big three. I'm not saying they're not still the big three, but a lot of people will get a lot of social media from their Twitch. People get a lot of social media from their TikTok. They'll get a lot of social media from YouTube. And when I mean social media, I mean like a sense of fostering community and talking with their friends and all that stuff, right? Like some people use, games like Fortnite to just hang out and talk with their friends and update each other on what's going on in life and all that stuff. And I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think of the scenario where like I'm actively surprised at where people go to engage in social media sometimes when I go to post something, right? Just gonna adjust this microphone. Okay, the microphone has been adjusted. But hey, welcome to episode 100. We made it. We survived. I know we were sick a couple of times, missed a couple episodes, weeks, things like that. But we're here and we're back. And I'll tell you right now, looking at the news, a very calming news week this week, in the sense that not a lot of big stuff, Shadows of the Erd Tree, the Elden Ring expansion, that's out. There's nothing really to talk about in terms of that because I have not played it. But a pretty low key news week this week, and also a pretty low key gaming week for me as well. The Steam summer sale has just started as of about 1 hour ago. It's about 11:20 on the clock where I'm at. Temperatures and weather and traffic on the 30s. Anyways, I'm not going to do traffic and weather for you because that wouldn't make any sense. Point is I was late recording the show because the Steam sale started. I spent about an hour kind of like going through my wish list. I spend a lot of time, more time than I probably should, curating a Steam wish list of games that, older games that I want to pick up when they're on sale, whatever the case may be, as well as new games to check out, things like that. So I was pretty late starting the podcast because I was like, oh God, what's going on in the Steam sale? And also I'll mention, if you've never been there, it started like 10 o'clock my time. When you're sitting there in front of the computer, 10 a.m. waiting for the Steam sale to launch, you quickly find out that the whole thing just buckles under the weight of everybody trying to, load it up, right? So I probably spent like 20 minutes or so just trying to load the damn store on my phone, on my computer, whatever. And then I looked at the sales and I was like, yep, these look like the deals I was expecting. Nothing really like blew me out of the water of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is on sale or whatever the case may be. Like, I was looking at Baldur's Gate 3 because at some point I should probably play Baldur's Gate 3. And even looking at Baldur's Gate 3, I was like, oh, it's like 20% off. It's like $64. Like, if I like it, it's a lot of game, right? I mean, no one's denying that there isn't a lot of game to be experienced in the world of Baldur's Gate 3, but it's also like, do I really want to spend $64 on a game I may or may not like? So, whatever. That the Steam sale runs for about 2 weeks, and I will keep you up to date on what I buy and things like that. Steam Summer Sale, typically there is like 4 big sales per year on Steam. They do a summer, fall, winter, and spring sale. That doesn't factor in, like I think it was last week, there was like a Team 17 weekend sale, and that was like all games published by Team 17. You might see like a Square Enix weekend, you might see a Capcom weekend, and they're not always themed from publisher. They might also be themed based on, like, I think there was like a fighting game weekend, a week sale, or shooter weekend, or whatever. Like, they do various themed sales, but they'll do sales all throughout the year. But, usually everyone comes together for the big sale. And when I mean big, I don't necessarily mean like, I think this is like this misconception. Like, it's not necessarily that they are the biggest discounts. It's that it is the biggest selection of games on sale, because at the end of the day, especially with digital gaming, while they can definitely put those games on sale, it also means the pricing can be a little more protected than something like a game sitting on the shelf of a Best Buy collecting dust. And then Best Buy comes along and is like, well, shit, we got to move this game, get it off our shelf so we can put fucking, Funko Pops on the shelf, or whatever Best Buy sells these days. So just keep in mind that, like, the pricing for this digital stuff, while there can be a lot of sales, I know Sony, PlayStation's doing a sale and all that stuff. Like, there are sales and deals to be found. Just keep in mind that, like, sometimes this stuff is a lot more, thought out and strategically priced and planned, because it is a digital good that has, no physical shelf space to take up. I've not bought anything yet. I'm still making my way through Marvel's Midnight Suns. I did play a couple other games. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show, but I've not bought anything just yet. I know that a couple of games that I was looking to get my hands on were maybe Dredge and Dave the Diver. But again, no purchases at the moment. So as soon as I buy a game, you will be the first to know. So don't you worry. But we're going to kick off this news section talking about games that you will no longer be able to purchase. At least not yet. Forza Horizon 4, the 4th Forza Horizon game, will be delisted later this year. So Forza Horizon 5 is the current going Forza game, or Forza Horizon game. Well, as far as I'm concerned, no disrespect to Forza Motorsport, but Forza Horizon is where Forza stops and starts for me currently at the moment. But I played a ton of Forza Horizon 4. That was the one that took place in Europe, kind of a European setting for Forza. My first, I will say, Forza Horizon 4, my first like Forza game that I really got into. Absolutely loved it. An incredible game. And it is going to be removed from sale later this year. The reason for that is due to licenses. So this has unfortunately happened a lot. You cannot go buy Forza Horizon 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't even buy Forza Motorsport 7, which was the past Forza Motorsport game before the new Motorsport came out, because they are using these very short-term deals when it comes to licensing. Now, off the top of my head, I'm not too sure what the licenses are that are getting in the way of this. It could be cars. It could be music. I don't remember what it is. I'll maybe take a closer look, see what I can find. But the open world racing game, which originally came out in October of 2018, will be delisted from the Microsoft Store and Steam on December 15th of this year. And it seems like the expiring licensing agreements are both car brands and in-game music. The game's DLC is already delisted, meaning that the only way for new players to get access to those two expansions, which were Fortune Island and Lego Speed Champions, is by purchasing the Ultimate Edition of the game. So they do sell a standard edition of the game. They also sell an Ultimate, get all that you can eat sort of deal with that game. Now, players who own the game and its additional content after it's delisted on December 15th will still have it in their library. They're not taking it away, since this is not like The Crew, the bullshit that happened with The Crew. You will still be able to play it. All of the game's offline, online, and multiplayer features will remain active after it's delisted, and physical copies of the game will still work as normally too come December 15th. Now, to give Microsoft credit, they are significantly discounting the game. Let me load it up on Steam for just a moment because I don't own it on Steam. So let me take a look here. What is Forza Horizon 4 currently going for? I'll load it up here. So you can get Forza Horizon 4, the standard edition, for about $16 on Steam right now. You can get the deluxe edition, which includes the additional cars that they sold, for $20, or you can get the ultimate edition for $26. I'm going to say this. I think that is a reasonable price for Forza Horizon 4. Me personally, I did the thing that I typically always do with these games, where I got the standard edition of the game free on Game Pass, and then I bought the DLC separate. I don't believe I actually own Forza Horizon 4, but then again, I think about what Forza Horizon 4 is and compared to what Forza Horizon 5 is, and I just don't know if I necessarily want to go ahead and buy it just for keepsake. Like, it's just a scenario where it's like Forza Horizon 4 is a lot like Forza Horizon 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, me personally, I would be hard pressed to want to go spend the money to keep around a game like Forza Horizon 4. That being said, I recognize that, the delisting of these games continues to happen, and people lose access to digital content or the ability to purchase digital content and all that stuff. Like, trust me, I get it. I'm just saying, this stuff isn't going away anytime soon, but to give Microsoft credit, I think the fact that they're not, turning off the online features, they're not, doing anything like that. It's just a scenario where you'll no longer be able to get the game. Keep that in mind. Because when the game is delisted, it will no longer be available on Game Pass. However, any Game Pass subscriber who purchased DLC content for the game will still be able to play it. Those who still have an active full paid Game Pass subscription will get a game token in the coming days sent to them by Xbox Message Center, which can be redeemed for continued access of the game. So I guess did I get I don't even know what the, first of all, what is the Xbox Message Center? I don't think I've ever received a goddamn message from Xbox in my life. I'm just looking at this. Notifications: join the club in EA Sports FC 24. Play Madden NFL 24. I don't want to do any of that. I'm going to mark all of these as red. Where are my messages? Should I be expecting a message from Xbox? I don't know. Oh, listen, I'll tell you what. I'll keep you up to date on if I get access to this game or not. But look, again, this is a better way of handling this, right? I'm going to get access to something down the road, which means I won't even need to buy the game, which is cool. But unfortunately, going away December 15th. A great game, a fantastic game, and the thing that got me into Forza Horizon in general. Now we got some game announcements. Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered has been announced by your friends and mine at Capcom. This will be coming to the newest generation of console platforms. It is billed as an update release with a brand new look. If you never played Dead Rising, a fascinating game put out by Capcom in 2006. I believe it was an Xbox 360 game originally. And what Dead Rising is it is an open world zombie action survival game. It's not, when you hear Capcom zombie action survival game, I don't mean something like a Resident Evil. This is leaning a little more into comedy. This is leaning a little bit more into absurdity. than something like a Resident Evil. And don't get me wrong, Resident Evil gets fucking absurd, but this is more goofy for sure. The game stars Frank West. He is a photojournalist who gets trapped in a zombie-infested shopping mall in the fictional town of Willamette, Colorado. Dead Rising received several sequels, the first of which was developed by Blue Castle Games. Shout out to Blue Castle Games. That studio was acquired and renamed Capcom Vancouver in 2010 following the completion of Dead Rising 2. Capcom Vancouver then made Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, which was a 2011 game that replaced the main protagonist in Dead Rising 2. It was different than, it's like Chuck Green? Chuck Green? That sounds like a name of a video game protagonist. Anyways, Frank West was in Dead Rising 1. I think it was Chuck Green who was in Dead Rising 2. They did Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, which replaced Chuck Green with Frank West. They then made Dead Rising 3, which was an Xbox One launch title. And then they made 2016 Dead Rising 4. Capcom announced plans to close the studio and cancel its in-development projects in September of 2018. I have Dead Rising. I have a Dead Rising, don't I? God, I think I do. I think I have both Dead Rising 3 and 4. Yeah, it looks like I have Dead Rising 3 and 4. But anyways, the thing I would say is like the Dead Rising games have always been like very goofy, like unfortunately B tier, open world action, zombie games by your friends and mine at Capcom. I am very curious to see how this shapes up, if this is the big grand return of the Dead Rising series or not. I'm also curious, like, because I've always associated with a Dead Rising with Xbox, if there is any, I'm just going to check the PlayStation Store because I don't even know what Dead Rising is, because Dead Rising series is kind of such a mess between remakes and reboots and sequels and timed exclusives. Like, I don't even know off the top of my head what Dead Rising games are even available, like not on PC. So I'm going to go to the PlayStation Store. I'm going to type in Dead Rising. Just out of curiosity. Oh, well, would you look at that? Dead Rising 3, the original Dead Rising 3 on PlayStation, Dead Rising triple pack on PlayStation. That is 1, 2, and Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. Dead Rising 2 on its own. Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, also available on its own. They also sell something called Dead Rising 4 Frank's Big Package, which includes the Dead Rising 4 main game plus all the DLC, including something called Super Ultra Dead Rising 4 Mini Golf. Anyways, if you've never seen the Dead Rising games, it's this idea you're running around using kind of improvised weapons to beat up zombies. It's like huge swarms of zombies and all that stuff. So like you think about like the first game when you're in a mall, right? You might run to the fucking sporting goods store in the mall. You might break into the sporting goods store and use boxing gloves to beat up the zombies and stuff like that. So I guess I'm glad to know that PlayStation has gotten its fair share of Dead Rising games over the years as well. The exception being Dead Rising 3. Gosh, you know what? Maybe let me get back to you on which Dead Rising games are the ones to play. I never played 1. I only played 2, 3, and 4. I don't think I played Dead Rising Off the Record either, but yeah, Dead Rising, it might be back. We'll find out. No like hard, kind of details and stuff like that pertaining to the game. If we look at that trailer that they put out, there's no details other than they redrew Frank West. It's the remake of the first game, and it's coming sometime 2024. But that's not the only Capcom game that's coming back. The original Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 are back out on PC. Now, they're on a store called Good Old Games, also called GOG. Good Old Games, or GOG, whatever you want to call it, is a PC games store run by the folks over at CD Projekt. So this is like separate from The Witcher and Cyberpunk and all that stuff. But CD Projekt are the folks that kind of run good old games. And I'm just looking at the price here. You tell me what you think. Would you pay $12 to play the original Resident Evil on a PC? Maybe. Or you could get the bundle for $32.50. Now, I'm going to be honest with you right now. It would take a goddamn miracle for me to want to play the original Resident Evil games. Those games are clunky and just fucked up, and no offense, no offense, but like, you know, I have been spoiled by the remakes of Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 to the point where I do not want to go back and play anything resembling a old Resident Evil game. Now, the other thing to note is that for people that are looking to get back into that classic Resident Evil, they also did that remake of Resident Evil. It still uses the classic controls. I think they might have updated the controls a little bit, but it's definitely still the classic, you know, kind of camera perspective and things like that. But they did put that out, and that is out on everything. So if you look for just Resident Evil, it's a remake of Resident Evil, if that is your thing. But if you really want to play the original version, you can do that if you want. I will just note here, maybe I need to check out that remake, because in the Steam description, it says new controls, and then underneath new controls, it says you can play using the original control scheme or an alternate control scheme that lets you just push the analog stick to move in the direction you want to go, and you can switch the control scheme during gameplay in real time. But nothing here that says like, hey man, we got rid of like the ink ribbon bullshit. I don't know. Hey, maybe I'll just get way into Capcom zombie horror games all over again and report back with tales of both Resident Evil and Dead Rising. We will keep you informed. Anyways, that's out now if that is your thing. And speaking of old games that you may or may not want to play, Atari 50, which has been kind of dubbed more of a documentary than an actual video game, though it definitely contains old Atari games. Atari 50 is getting an expansion, which is going to include 39 extra games. The new content will be available as DLC to owners of the original game. If you don't already own it, Atari 50 is going to get a new like release with this expanded content in it. So if I go to this collection here on Steam, it just has Atari 50 at the moment. So it looks like the expanded edition adds a kind of further 2 timelines. It's hard to describe, but when you load up Atari 50, the menu is in like kind of chronological order of the way things went for Atari. The Atari expanded, they're renaming it to, they renamed it. This is a mouthful. It's a free update. So here's the timeline of things. The collection initially launched in November of 2022 with 103 Atari games in it from the 2600, 5200, 7800, 8-bit computer, Lynx, and Jaguar. So when it launched, Atari 50 had 100 games in it. Okay, 103 games in it. They then did a free update in December of 2023, which added 12 additional games. Now, Atari and developer Digital Eclipse have revealed Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration Expanded Edition, that's a mouthful, which adds a further 39 games, bringing the total to 154. Why didn't they just call it Atari 154? What's the deal with airline food? Anyways, Atari 50 presents its games through an interactive timeline covering the history of Atari and introducing the games in chronological order, though you can play things out of order if you really want to. The expanded edition adds a further 2 timelines, one called The Wider World of Atari and The First Console War, with new interviews, vintage ads, and historical artifacts. The expanded edition will be released on October 25th on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, PS5. Oh, they have PS5 twice. I'm assuming that's PS4 and not PS5. But anyways, it's coming to PS5, Xbox, PC. A physical version will be released on PS5 and Switch, and a special Steelbook edition will be released for Switch containing Atari 2600 art cards, miniature arcade marquee signs, and an AI Alcorn replica Sigsy's Co. business card. That might be like the original Atari name. Now, players that already own Atari 50 will get the 2 extra timelines and 39 games as download content, though it's not clear how much this will cost. And it's just to remind you that Atari acquired Intellivision, so it only makes sense to factor in Intellivision stuff into the Atari 50 collection. Atari 50 collection right now, I think it's about $45-50 if you want to get into it. The free update's already there. It might also be on sale if that is your thing, but it looks like this new bundle will probably be sold separately as DLC, or you can buy the expanded anniversary collection if that is your thing. I have always meant to play Atari 50. I've started trying to learn a little bit more about the history of video games if possible. And I just think it's interesting to find out like how we got here, right? You think about 1977, Pong came out. Pong's not even the first original video game. It goes all the way back to Tennis for Two. And also here's another thing to take into account. 77 Pong releases, 78 Space Invaders. You think about how big of a difference just going from Pong to Space Invaders is. And I've been kind of getting this stuff from a book that I've been reading. I don't read a lot of books, but I decided to fire up the old iPad and check out a game check out a book, excuse me. I've been trying to rent digital content from the library. I just think the idea of like me buying a book I may never actually finish reading seems like a waste of money and time. So I decided to rent or borrow, from the library, a digital copy of Video Game of the Year by Jordan Miner, excuse me. Not Jordan Midler, Video Games Chronicles, Jordan Miner, and Video Game of the Year is a book that chronicles the most important video game of the year every year, going back to 1977. I'm a little ways into it. I'm not like too deep into it, but first game, 1977, Pong. Second game, 1978 was Space Invaders. And just learning about the context of those games, the history of those games, super fascinating. So I'm probably going to keep reading through that. If I read any more of it, I will let you know how that goes for me. But because of that book, I've thought about trying to get into Atari 50 as well. I was not even a twinkle in either of my parents' eyes when Atari was around doing their thing, but I'm still very, very curious to check it out. And it looks like, that game's going to continue to receive updates down the road as well. What else do we have? Vampire Survivors Studio shares updates on its PlayStation release plans. It turns out that when you submit a game to Sony, it takes a little bit longer than usual for them to kind of approve the game. It was announced in April that the studio was planning to bring the game to PS4 and PS5. 2.5 months later, with the summer having now begun, the developer Ponsol offered the following updates on Twitter. They wrote, "As it's now summer and we've had a lot of people asking when the PlayStation release will be happening, we want to keep you all updated as we still don't have a release date to share, but wanted to let you know why." They said, "This is the first time we're going through the submission process on PlayStation, so it's taking a little longer than usual. We're also doing some trial and error on trophies to ensure we get them right, but we'll let you know ASAP when we have a solid date." Vampire Survivors, incredible game. Just a fantastic arcade shooting game, and I think it's going to be a real treat when it comes to PlayStation for PlayStation users. Also, the game's like dirt cheap. Like, I know they've done DLC and you can buy a bunch of stuff for it as well, but that base game is like $5-6. Like it's incredibly cheap, and they added a ton of free updates to it. They are also selling DLC for the game as well, but like there's a ton to Vampire Survivors, and if you get the chance to check it out, like do not miss, because that game is absolutely fantastic. Love Vampire Survivors, but hopefully PlayStation release date coming soon. Speaking of release dates, Frostpunk 2 has been delayed to, quote, guarantee the best possible experience at launch. Frostpunk 2 is being made by This War of Mine developer 11-Bit Studios. They have made the decision to postpone the release of Frostpunk following the game's beta. They shared this update on Steam. The studio thanked all those who took part in the beta, saying the average rating from the experience was a healthy 8 out of 10. So the people that played the beta seemed pretty happy with it. They said, we are super grateful for that. However, it noted that along with some positive comments, it also took the time to analyze and prioritize what the studio wanted to add into the game. And in order to, quote, properly do them justice and guarantee the best possible experience at launch, the team came to the conclusion it should postpone Frostpunk 2's release. They wrote, "We know that this is not the news you wanted to hear. However, we believe these additional features are something you deserve to see in-game on day one and not in a patch added after release. Quote, we can only hope you understand our decision comes from a place of wanting to create the best game possible for you." They originally planned to release Frostpunk on September 20th. It will still launch straight into PC Game Pass when it comes out, but it has been delayed. Now, this is what I'm thinking. Frostpunk 2 is kind of a survival city builder type game. And I'm wondering if the developers, I mean, people really like Frostpunk 1, saw a ton of free updates, ton of DLC, all that stuff, right? And people seem to really like Frostpunk. Never played it, but think about the story that we just told you last week about Paradox, right? The situation that they found themselves in with City Skylines 2. The situation that they found themselves in when it came to Life by You. These are totally separate companies, all that stuff, right? But I think what some developers, the smart ones anyways, and I think the folks at 11-Bit Studios are incredibly smart in realizing this, is that when you release a game and it's not amazing, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, right? So if you were planning to put out a game in a state where it was going to continue to receive free updates and content, that doesn't save you from the fact that that game needs to be damn good on day one and then only get better from there, right? You think about City Skylines and like nobody cares about City Skylines 2. Nobody cares about whatever, huge expansion DLC they want to add to that game. Like nobody cares about the problems that they're trying to solve. Nobody cares about City Skylines. I might be the only person who cares about City Skylines 2 because I keep talking about it every goddamn week on this podcast. But the point is, if Frostpunk 2 launches and everyone looks at, because here's the other thing, right? So, sorry, I slapped my microphone out of pure excitement. So, hear me out. The worst thing that could possibly happen to Frostpunk 2 is Frostpunk 2 comes out and people look at it and say, Frostpunk 1, especially with all the updates they did and all the extra content they sold, actually Frostpunk 1 is still a better experience, right? Because that's exactly what happened with City Skylines. And I just don't think that, the folks at 11-Bit want that to happen to their game. So I wish them all the best of luck. I hope that updated release date, works out for them. Currently, I wonder if it's updated on Steam. Let me see if I can take a look. Frostpunk 2 still shows September 20th, or was it supposed to come out in July? Hold on. Let me get my facts straight. When was the original release date? Yes. Okay. So the new release, sorry, just to quote, the new release date is September 20th, right? So it must have been like a July game. But anyways, I hope it works out for the folks at 11-Bit Studios. I hope Frostpunk 2 is good, and I might check out Frostpunk when it comes out. I mean, it's coming to Game Pass, so I have kind of no reason to not check it out. Though, looking on Steam, I think Frostpunk right now, the first game, is very, very cheap on Steam. It's like $3.89 on Steam. So, you know, it's a scenario where it's like, if you never played Frostpunk 1 and Frostpunk 2 comes out, what are you going to play? Are you going to play Frostpunk 1 or are you going to play Frostpunk 2? Choice is yours. Let's move on. Another game getting remastered. Another game that I never played. Star Wars Bounty Hunter is being remastered 20 years later, and it is adding Boba Fett. Bubba Fett? It's not Bubba Fett. I don't think the Fett brothers are like from the South. Oh, the tales of Bubba Fett. Anyways, a remastered and improved version of Star Wars Bounty Hunter, originally released over 20 years ago, is set to launch in August across consoles and PC. And this new version will finally let players unlock Boba Fett, something teased in the original release but never actually offered. Now you might be wondering, well, what the hell, Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and only now you're going to be able to play as Boba Fett? No, because this game was based on the prequels, so it was all about playing as Jango Fett. Anyways, Star Wars Bounty Hunters is like a third-person shooter, run around with a jetpack shooting shit video game where you played as Jango Fett. But now you'll be able to play as Boba Fett if that is your thing. That is coming out in August 1st. Look for it. Hopefully it works out better than that remastered collection of Star Wars Battlefront. And then finally, our last news story. Have you ever been playing Hitman and thought to yourself, wow, I'd really like to kill Conor McGregor? Well, now you can, which is going to be fun for all those involved. I seem to have pulled the wrong news article from this. My apologies here. I'm just going to type in Hitman Conor McGregor into the internet and then read the first, because I already read the news story, but I think it was on my phone, not on my PC. Hitman Conor McGregor. Sure, just type that into the internet, and here we go. All right. You can now kill Conor McGregor. Well, actually, you can't quite yet. Let me explain. Hitman, the World of Assassination is getting assassination. Sound like Sean Connery there. Oh, they should put Sean Connery in. I mean, he's dead. You can't really kill a man who's already dead. Point is, quit rambling, GnittWitt. The UFC champion and star of the hit movie Roadhouse is going to be the next elusive target in Hitman World of Assassination. So here's what's happening. Hitman has a bunch of different modes. They have the story mode. They have the freelancer mode. I've talked about the freelancer mode. They also have a mode called elusive target. The way it works is they put a character in in one of the maps, and it'll tell you like, hey, Connor is in Italy, or Connor is in Sapienza is Italy, but Connor's in Paris or whatever, right? And they kind of wrote this unique story for the character in that world. And the way that it works is they don't actually tell you where in the world the target is. You have to explore the map to find somebody who sticks out like a sore thumb and then find ways to kill them. So they're called elusive targets because they're only there for a time limited events. And also, if you fail killing them once, you cannot do it again. They take away the ability. So it's a one-shot attempt at something like their target. So Conor McGregor is available now. He's going to be available in-game from June 27th to July 29th. But again, you only have one shot at this. So maybe I'll try to kill Conor McGregor. I think the MF has it coming. My understanding is that he's going to be in the island of Skal, in one of those fancy pants party levels in Hitman. I think they even redid the level to include like there's an octagon like in the map. Like they sometimes will redo the maps in the game to factor in the story as well, which is super cool. They're also doing a $5 DLC pack, which will include a fur coat, a kettlebell, a resistance band, and cane items as well. So if you wanted to dress like Conor McGregor, I guess Conor McGregor probably wears fur coats. I don't know. But anyways, that is also coming as well, which is neat. But anyways, that's going to be you can kill Conor McGregor for free June 27th to July 29th in Hitman World of Assassination, if that is your thing. We're going to take a break. This is the only break because it's going to be a shorter show for sure. When we come back, we're going to talk another Crab's Treasure, Lords of the Fallen, and Midnight Sun. Stick around. We will be right back. Oops, slapping my microphone again. My apologies. All right, we're going to, for real now, break time, nap time. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt. Just a quick update. I've been reading Video Game of the Year by Jordan Miner. I'll probably have more to say about that book next week on the show because I'm only a few chapters in. But so far, I really like it. I'm quite happy with not only checking it out, but also getting a chance to get back into a little bit of reading as well. But yeah, they're going to go. The book covers about 40 years of gaming history, starting with 1977. Each chapter covering a certain book, a certain game from that year and why it is so important. I'll have more to say next week on the show. But you know, I've been playing some games. So I have not played Elden Ring. I did not go back to Elden Ring. I know we're kind of like humming and hawing him. Is he gonna do it? Is he not? Are they gonna kiss? Are they not? Whatever. Anyways, the point is, I did not kiss Elden Ring. I did not get back into Elden Ring. I have not asked Elden Ring to take me back. I've not done anything with Elden Ring. But I might. I've still left the door open a little crack. I just wish my ex-girlfriend would do the same with me. The point is I have decided, instead of playing Elden Ring, for whatever reason, I decided to play other Souls-like games. And I think the thing I'll say about trying out other Souls-like games is I regret doing that. So I don't know if you heard of a little game called Another Crab's Treasure. Another Crab's Treasure is a Souls-like game. But instead of being set in some crazy fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, it takes place under the sea, where you are a little crab guy who loses. It's like a hermit crab. So you lose your shell at the start of the game because a lone shark, get it? Lone shark under the sea. Anyways, they come by your house and they're like, hey man, there's a new boss in town. You haven't been paying your taxes. They take your little crab shell away, and then you go off on a quest to go, I don't know, I'm assuming you're going to kill the big bad, like, queen of the sea or whatever. The point is that, I was playing it and I thought, like, tone and aesthetic and vibe, like, kind of this, like, you're walking on the sea floor, kind of looks like an episode of SpongeBob type thing. Like, I thought that'd be fun, but I really didn't like playing it. Really just could not have disliked it more strong. I really didn't like it. Now let me explain why. So I found the combat to be really, really slow, floaty at times, and a little unresponsive. Like, if you've ever played, like Bloodborne or Elden Ring or Demon Souls or one of the From Software games, while sometimes the combat can be slow because you're using a big heavy sword or whatever, it still feels tight and precise. Like when you press the button, you might be watching some animations of a guy trying to lift a big heavy sword or whatever, but like it feels like shit's going. I felt like when I clicked the button in Another Crab's Treasure, it took way too long for the character to even respond to what it was that I was doing. So I pretty quickly turned off Another Crab's Treasure. I was like, in a game where you're gonna have to worry about dodging and not dying, and if you do die, you got to get your stuff before you die again and all that stuff. Like, having unresponsive combat just seemed like the least appealing thing in a subgenre of games that I don't always find appealing as it is. So I deleted Another Crab's Treasure, and I thought to myself, well, what about that Lords of the Fallen remake? That Lords of the Fallen remake came out on Xbox Game Pass, and I remembered kind of liking the original Lords of the Fallen. I think in part because of just how shameless it was at being a Dark Souls-like knockoff. But I thought to myself, you know what? That game wasn't so bad, from what I played. let's see about the new one. And my thing with the new one is they added a bunch of stuff to the game that I found completely unappealing. So I think about just the combat in that Lords of the Fallen game and all that stuff. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't find that there's a real struggle or delay with the combat whatsoever. It's still a hard game, all that stuff. That's fine. Instead, they added this new, like, kind of puzzle mechanic where you are entering into different realities in the world, and you use that, you know, the alternate realities to, like, earn a meter. Like, you kill enemies and earn a meter. It's also used for puzzle solving. And I gotta be honest, when I come to one of these games, I don't come to them for puzzles. I know, like, it's already, you know, a scenario where to me, when I think about, you know, a Souls-like game, the puzzle is the combat. It's about how to beat these bosses. It's about how to get around this, you know, enemy encounter. It's about finding the right weapon combination for the style of character and combat that you're trying to play. To me, it's all about the puzzle is the combat is the puzzle. So when Lords of the Fallen introduced this mechanic where you're going in and out of reality to, you know, solve puzzles, and like, oh, I triggered this thing in this reality and then I activate it here, I turned it off almost as quick as I did another Crab's Treasure. I was like, I don't have the patience to do bullshit alternate reality puzzle solving in a game that didn't have it originally, at least from what I remember from Lords of the Fallen 1, and completely defeats the point of what I come to those games for. So I wash my hands of the Souls-like games. It's not that, like, there aren't good or decent, whatever, you know, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring like knockoff games out there. Off the top of my head, some games that are very much inspired by those games that I think are not bad would be games like Wolong Fallen Dynasty. I think Wolong Final Dynasty is a decent Souls-like game. I also think the Neo games are not bad. Those are leaning more into like samurai, you know, style combat and stuff like that. I think those games are okay. Off the top of my head, I know some people don't mind the Surge games. Those are more sci-fi type games. You know, you're kind of like using robot parts to build up your, you know, guy and all that shit. But really just did not like another Crab's Treasure or Lords of the Fallen. Like, just spit it out as quick as I could. Was not a fan of it, unfortunately. So I then went back to what I've been playing for, you know, for the last little bit now, which is Marvel's Midnight Suns. And I think Marvel's Midnight Suns is a fantastic game. I absolutely love it. I'm about 30 hours into Marvel's Midnight Suns now, and looking at kind of I looked at a walkthrough on IGN, not because I needed help, and I'll explain why I don't need help in a moment, but I was just curious to see where I am in the main story, because when you look at the mission, you basically walk to a part in the world where you can look at the mission table, and from the mission table, it'll always show you your next story quest, so you always know where to go. But it'll also populate the rest of that you know, mission board with side quests. And every day you take on one quest, you come back, you do your social stuff, you go to bed, the cycle continues, right? But you never miss out on the story mission because you spent the next 3 or 4 days just doing side missions or any of that stuff, like, which is awesome, right? So I spent a little bit of time grinding out and leveling your characters, because every time you take a character, it's always parties of 3, right? So you always have to take 3 people into battle, but the people you don't take into battle don't level up. They don't get new card abilities. They don't get new upgrades. So it's a scenario where there might be a story mission that requires Blade. And if you haven't taken Blade on a mission in some time, he may not be as powerful as, say, Captain America that you've been rolling with for a long time in the game. But it's not just bringing them on the combat missions that gives them, you know, a better fighting abilities. You also gain new abilities when you engage in their relationship. So if you go fishing with Blade, you will have a more powerful Blade than someone that you maybe haven't spent as much time, you know, talking with in the Abbey, hanging out with, you know, giving them gifts and learning about them. So it's really fascinating and fantastic the way that the game balances you engaging with the story that gives you perks and bonuses and benefits to work in combat, and also the combat, you know, being a scenario where, like any RPG, the more you spend time with the character in combat, the more powerful they'll be. But I think the thing for me about kind of Midnight Suns, and the reason why I haven't necessarily needed, like a guide, is just kind of because of how straightforward the game is. A lot of RPGs, especially these days, will lean to like this big, huge, massive open world. And Midnight Suns does not have an open world in the traditional sense. What Midnight Suns has is a base of operations that you can go and walk around and explore the grounds of, no problem. But when you're in a mission, that mission is the battle. Maybe there's two parts to the battle, like you do one battle and then there's a boss battle that happens separately after the first battle or whatever. But there's no like, you never get lost. There's never a sense of like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. It is a very, very straightforward game. The quests, the missions are very straightforward. So you can easily, and the reason why I appreciate, you might think, well, like, how can it be an RPG? How can you have that much influence and choice if it's such a straightforward, kind of mission design, straightforward progress in how you play through the levels and missions and stuff like that, and the quests? And I think it's because by allowing the mission objectives and the progression of the story to be so straightforward, it allows you to actually further engage with the RPG systems that are there in terms of, customizing, your, the hunter, the main character, the hunter's abilities, their outfits and all that stuff. But also you can spend as much time, perfecting the perfect, 8 cards for Blade, for Spider-Man, for Captain America, for, Captain Marvel, right? Like you can really spend a lot of time just perfecting the perfect card abilities for each character. And then you can spend just as much time hanging out with them outside of combat missions. So to me, having such a straightforward, mission structure and design actually allows me to focus on the RPG stuff that really matters. I think about a lot of games like Starfield, for example, that have such vast open worlds. You can go and see and do anything. But by the time you get to where you're actually going, or you stumble across something in the open world, whether it be in space, on a planet, in a city, there's not actually a lot to do and interact with. It's very, very straightforward in terms of the things that you can do. And, but it's gussied up and disguised in this huge and vast open world. And I just think Midnight Suns just being so razor sharp and razor focused allows me to engage in the open world, engage in the RPG mechanics that I really care about. Customizing the characters, engaging in battle, upgrading my abilities, and engaging with the characters' relationships and story as side stories, right? So in that sense, I continue to be just absolutely in love with Midnight Suns. Really, it's kind of amazing to me that two of the most underrated and ignored Marvel games, those being Midnight Suns and Guardians of the Galaxy, are also two of the best Marvel games to come out in a long time. Like, no disrespect to Spider-Man or the Avengers. Well, I mean, the Avengers game wasn't that amazing. But I feel so connected to those characters just based on the ability to engage with them in their stories, right? Like now all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I should like find some comic book, if I'm going to get into reading a little bit more, maybe I should start reading The Runaways and learn more about Nico and magic and all that stuff. And, I got so into Midnight Suns, I was like, fuck it, I got to watch those Blade movies with Wesley Snipes. I only watched the first one, but, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill, right? And, again, just really blown away by Midnight Suns. I could not be happier with it. It also just kind of reminds me of what I like about RPGs, and it's not necessarily the scale and the scope of the world. It really is more about how you interact with your party characters in terms of their upgrades, their abilities, their combat, and also the character's relationship with the world around them, right? Say what you will about Fallout 4, but like, I never walked away from Fallout 4 being like, I really made a difference in the world. Whereas in Midnight Suns, I definitely feel like I'm making a difference talking to Ghost Rider about what's going on with his family and his character, and, how, Spider-Man feels about being, maybe the newest, youngest member of the Avengers and all of that stuff. Like, just fantastic, individual character stories. I think the main story is decent too. Though, again, it's really more about, I'll give you a great example. without spoiling anything. So I talked about the hunter, the main character of the hunter. They're like a 300, 400 year old, like half demon, slayer type character who is resurrected to kill their mom, who is a demon, right? Well, eventually that character meets Steve Rogers, Captain America, and then they have a conversation about what it's like to be like hundreds and hundreds of years old and kind of, people that are out of time, right? And that's a great, and you can have dialogue choices and conversation choices about what to talk about, with Steve Rogers, but like just a fantastic conversation about like two people that are kind of fish out of water, people at a time sort of things, right? And in that sense, I could not be happier with Midnight Suns. Really blown away. I think the card battling system continues to be engaging. I continue to find, upgrades and abilities and new cards, upgrades on current existing cards that keep the combat feeling fresh and exciting. A couple enemy changes that happen as well. A couple boss battles that are interesting as well. So, in one of the bosses is Venom, and when you fight Venom, anytime you do a melee attack on Venom, he gains the symbiote skin. And what that means is if you use another melee combat attack on him the second time around, it may absorb that character that you used into his symbiote and actually kind of do damage to that character. You fight a couple other characters as well. But a fun main narrative, incredible side stories and character stuff. I could not be happier with Midnight Suns, and I will continue to play more of it. I don't know if I'll get the DLC. I really wanted to get the DLC, but the DLC, I'm playing the game on Epic Game Store. It's not currently, the DLC is not on sale. I know there's a big Steam sale and all that shit going on, but as of right now, it is not for sale. So I'll have to keep my eyes peeled to see if I can get DLC, because the DLC characters are Storm, Morbius, Venom, and Deadpool, I believe. And each of those characters comes with their own costumes and cosmetics, as well as their own upgrades and abilities, and their own separate story for you to engage with as well. So maybe I'll check that out. Maybe I won't. I would like to eventually, I like completing games. I like finishing games. I like moving on to other stuff. Not too sure what I would move on to just yet anyways, but I would say I'm about halfway done Midnight Suns. And if anything, comes up on Steam sale or Game Pass or whatever that I check out, I'll definitely be talking about that as well. I know that Amazon Prime Gaming does a ton of free games for PC. And I know there's a ton of free games coming out in July as part of Amazon Prime Gaming. So maybe I'll check out some Amazon Prime Gaming on PC. We will find out. But I'm going to say that episode 100 has come and gone. And I want to say thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the show. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads. I am all over the place. I'm I'm out there, single and ready to mingle. Thank you so much for checking out the show, episode 100. We made it. I am happy to continue doing the show, and we will do that because we're going to see you all next week for more Glitch Report. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your dad, tell your mom. Tell your sister, your cousin, your uncle, your brother, tell your weird uncle, that uncle that you don't invite to Thanksgiving because he has some things to say about the state of the world. And if you don't want to hear it, tell him that's okay, but you can check out the Glitch Report anyways. I've been GnittWitt, and we'll see you all next week. Take it easy.